Do we need to do we need to have some centering prayer to bring you to bring you
Bring me
back?
to center. No, I'll
Let's
be
take
good.
a deep breath. Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
I've been hydrating.
Now. Ah, me too. Do you like my cup? It has my name on it. Can you see? Wait, I know it's really shiny. Oh, there.
Oh yeah, it's pretty.
It's my it was my bridesmaid cup.
Nice.
Okay. So
So
I have a doozy for today. Oh,
sounded like it.
I'm Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn. I'm Faith. Nice
You're
to meet
Faith, I know. And this is Faith Forward with open minds
and open hearts.
Yes, we'll get that one day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I thought
today,
we got it there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Okay. So yes, I did send you some shocking material to review last night, and we will get to that.
I'll be curious where you're going with that.
Yeah, because honestly, it was a thought I had the day before, and I thought, oh, I'll just give Faith an idea of what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And then as I wrote it out, I was like, this sounds insane. There's no way she can prep for this unless I show her the video that I watched. So we're going to talk about reincarnation and twins and transgender. And that is all going to maybe come together as one topic, if you can believe it. But so for a trigger warning, I'm going to just say for anybody, this will involve infant loss at some point. So do you want to speak before we go into that juice? Do you want to speak about what we were listening to the other night?
Oh, sure. I can speak about that a little bit. So you and I both attended a lecture that was hosted by the Freethinkers of Fairfield County, I believe.
And Himmanists.
Himmanists and Freethinkers of Fairfield
County,
right. Anyhow, it was a lecture given by a professor, and I can't remember what specifically, but he analyzes a lot of data sets in regards to psychology and sociology. And the topic was psychology and dogmatic delusions, the psychology of dogmatic delusions. So it had a lot of very interesting.
I had to look up what dogmatic meant, which feels like something I should have known being in a religious world.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? The only reference I have to that word is that movie, Dogma, like with Matt Damon, where they're like angels and they've fallen and they're shooting people. I don't know. It's like that's where the symbol of Buddy Christ came from.
Oh gosh, I don't know this. That's all right.
We should watch that. We should watch that together and review it. But it kind of plays on the contradictions of religion and stuff. But dogma, I thought meant religious. But I honestly couldn't even tell you what it meant now. Does it mean non-religious?
No, it doesn't. I think it's more of like a firm, a very particular way of viewing things. So a lot of times you'll hear the term religious dogma, and so that means like would be referring to probably a lot of fundamentalist ideas, people who take their religion very seriously and try to place it onto other people and expect other people to also follow it. And that's a really bad definition. I'm sure there's a better definition out there, but yeah.
It's fine. We accept.
Yeah.
So we were, it was like 2 hours. Did you make it to the end?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah. The first hour was really good. And
you left really close to the end. You almost made it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because the first part was like great. And it set up this idea like, hey, we're going to talk about what these extreme believers, like how their brain works, which is something I wanted to know so bad.
I know.
The first half was nice and clear. And then the second half, it was like cutting in and out, like I was losing service. And so somebody would ask like an amazing question, or they would leave out one word that I lost the context of the question, or they'd get this awesome question. And then it would be like, so I never heard the answer.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So I was getting frustrated because I couldn't, the only thing I got from the second half was it's important to, because I think one of the questions was, how do we talk to people who are fundamentalists, like who are so extreme in their belief, if they're not going to change, right? And so I think they said, find people, or so that we don't become like them on the other side of things. And I think the answer was, find people you can disagree with respectfully.
Yeah.
Find people that you can disagree with, who you are willing to listen to, who you both have a mutual respect, and you can disagree, and learn from each other and be willing to learn from each other.
Yeah, I think that was the main point, Carolyn. You picked up on the good
good.
Point. Yeah.
I didn't miss it then. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Yeah, he was saying, that's how you keep from being dogmatic, is you do engage with people of opposing views. But, you do have to find somebody that you respect who holds that opposing view. Because there are plenty of people you probably, that you're like, I can't even listen to them because I don't respect who they are, whatever. Right. So yeah, was good. Yeah. And he also, I think the very last question somebody brought up was about how to engage with people who hold dogmatic beliefs. Just to engage with them and try to help them open up to another way of seeing things. And his response was, well, that's a really tricky question and a really hard one. And his bit of advice was to try to engage people on things that they just enjoy and just get to know them personally. And that's really the only way you can maybe then don't bring up what you don't agree on, but just simply get to know them as a person, and then maybe it might come up and you guys can have an open, honest conversation from there. So it's kind of just the way it is. Yeah, you can't really force somebody to believe what you believe, and coming to that acknowledgement is sometimes hard.
I have this friend on Facebook who he is a gay married man, been with his spouse for decades, and he was, I think, a social worker. I don't know him super close, but he's always posting very political, liberal, independent, democratic type things, social justice things. And he has this guy named Dennis that comments on every post with some crappy thing to say. I've never met Dennis. I don't know Dennis, but as soon as I see my friend post like something or share something, I'm like, where's Dennis? And it's coming. Like become really, it's become this like running joke with all these people, and we don't know each other. And we've engaged with Dennis over the years, like, and Dennis doesn't give a crap. He is a redneck, like gun toting, make America great again. There shouldn't be no gay bathrooms for our kids, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
But he's friends with this man. They're friends with each other. And I say to my friend, why don't you block Dennis? Why don't you get rid of Dennis? And he's like, because it's just Dennis. Like, I mean, it's just Dennis being Dennis. He goes, let him argue. And you can see them going back and forth, and back and forth. But even through the text messages, even though you can't hear what they're saying, you can really feel like, look, I love you, man, and I love you, man, but like, you're wrong. It's like, nah, you're wrong. Yeah. But let's do it again tomorrow. Yeah. Nobody's going to bed like, angry, Nobody's like, F that guy, like, he's such an idiot. Like, he didn't have to remove Dennis because he doesn't let Dennis affect him that way. He's just like, that's Dennis, man. And then it's like he engages debates with Dennis knowing that they'll never, ever agree.
Yeah.
So I learned something I learned stuff watching Dennis in action now. He's a test. Well, not one I could pass.
Well, the interesting thing about that I felt that I learned from that talk was that really being dogmatic is not cannot be assigned to just one viewpoint. That really any
Mm,
viewpoint can be held dogmatically. And I think, like we
yeah,
had mentioned and we've talked about before, sometimes it's not what you believe, it's how you believe it and how tightly you cling to that belief that really causes harm. So, so we all do our best to try to choose the best things to believe, and that takes some reason and some logic and some, looking at our experiences. But then you gotta like just hold it loosely too, and that's really the key is the holding it loosely. So that was sort of what I felt was reinforced to what I have come to know through listening to this guy speak. And I guess the other thing I wanted to mention too was just along those lines is that they have done lots of studies and trying to find, maybe a way that the brain works that has a marker for people who are more dogmatic, or maybe there's a genetic
yeah.
disposition, or maybe there's it's the way that people were brought up, and they have found no strong correlation to any of those things. And that was the thing, was like, oh, interesting. There's not
It's
one.
all inconclusive.
It's all inconclusive. We don't know what to
Mhm.
make somebody dogmatic. We just know that it's not typically a good thing, and we need to protect ourselves against being that way. So, anyhow.
I remember watching the January 6th insurrection going, how does this happen? How, I mean, not, and it wasn't just that, but I mean, the whole election, I'm just like, how do these people really believe? And then when they lost, how are they out there saying like, no, Trump's still the president? And
Mm-hmm.
they mean it. And I'm like, how does this happen? And I remember looking up like the science behind the brains of Republicans. So when these guys started talking, I was like, oh my God, like there's a whole lecture on this. Like, because it's the same way we look at, the evangelical church and go, how can they think like this?
Yeah.
And, for them to be like, we don't know. It's like, oh my God. Like, but, but
Yeah.
in the psychology part of, and they're talking about how flexible our brain is. It was really cool to hear, like, they when they were doing studies and they would tell somebody a memory, and they'd make this person recite this memory over and over and over, even though it was a false memory, it wasn't real.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually the study subject would be like, no, that really was my memory. And they're like, well, no, it was part of our study. And they're like, no, like I remember it happening. It then becomes a core memory because they've just told themselves this. So now, and the parts of the brain that are firing are the ones that are saying, like, no, this really did happen to you. So that's scary, like,
It is
but
scary.
also makes sense. Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, you can be convinced of something that's true, even if it's not.
Right. Yeah. And it's it's
Like,
it, it is scary to think that we were all so open or able to be open to delusions ourselves.
yeah,
Like I don't want to believe that I am able to be deluded yet. It's a frightening thought.
yeah.
So,
Because you want to feel like, oh, I'm in control of my mind. Somebody
right,
else shouldn't be able to control it.
right. Yeah.
But good times. I would love to hear from those guys again. Freethinkers and humanists. Not, I don't know that they were all even religious, or
I think most
there
of
was
them
like, wait,
were
98
atheists.
people.
Oh, over a
Yeah, I think so
hundred.
too. Yeah, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pivot.
Okay.
We're gonna pivot over and we're gonna start in slowly for you, for all of our friends. We're
Okay.
gonna start slowly. So reincarnation. This is something I've been obsessed with forever. I love the idea of it. What are your thoughts on reincarnation? Do you believe in it? Do you think it's possible?
Well, I mean, I don't rule anything out at this point. I'm open to hearing. I can't. I mean, I've definitely thought about it. I don't really know that I'm holden to a specific view on it at this point.
Okay,
But
well,
I
maybe
do
at the end
find
of
it
this, you might change your mind.
I do find it fascinating, and I could find be very interested to hear others' opinions about it. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it and what your thoughts are on it.
Okay. Have you ever like looked up any stories or seen any videos about like real stories, like,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
documentaries? Have you ever? Okay, you have.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So, for anybody that lives under a rock, no offense, reincarnation is when your soul, when you die, your soul moves to another body and comes back to life in this new body, right? So, I'm going to read some of the most compelling ones that I've found over the years. I'm going to read, they're not too long. I made sure that they were like kind of condensed.
Cool.
But you can look up any of these online. They're they're like some of the most popular ones that I've seen again and again, and I've studied, and so I love this stuff. So this is a good one of my faves. A Chicago fire victim was reincarnated as a 5-year-old boy. At first, Erica laughed off her 5-year-old son Luke's odd tendency to call toys and objects Pam. She was also unconcerned by his comments about having once been a girl. He would say that he had black hair and when he was a girl, or that he wore the same earrings as his mom when he was a girl. Out of curiosity, Erica eventually asked Luke who Pam was. I was, he said. Well, I used to be, but I died and I went up to heaven. I saw God, and then eventually God pushed me back down, and then I woke up and I was a baby, and you named me Luke. After pressing him for more details, Luke told his mother he lived in Chicago, took the train a lot, and died in a fire. After mentioning his death, Luke made a hand motion indicating someone jumping out of a window. When Erica punched the information into a search engine, she discovered a news story about a fire at the Paxton Hotel in Chicago. In March of 1993, 19 people died in a fire at the building, and a woman, Pam Robinson, perished when she jumped out a window. Erica couldn't explain how Luke would have known about the fire in Chicago. He had never ever been to the city, and she never discussed it with him. While the haunting story of Pam Robinson could be a coincidence, it was enough to make Erica believe. John and Florence Pollock were devastated. Oh, whoops, time out. That's the next story. So,
Cut.
and scene. Whoopsie. Anyway, so I like this story because this is one of the simpler ones. And if you explore it a little bit more, I think they took him to meet the surviving members of the family, and he was able to tell, like, oh, that's my sister, that's my brother, da da da, that's blah blah blah. So that's my favorite part, is not when they tell the story, but when they validate these kids' arguments, and they're babies. So the average time that reincarnation stories are reported are between the ages of 2 and 5. So yeah, 2 and 5. And they oh my God, generally, geez, they generally forget about their past life. It starts fading about 7 to 9 years old. Most of them eventually forget it. So it's really the parents that document everything that happens. Like the kids very often draw pictures, or they record what what the kid is saying and the research. So it's not just like, oh, this is a fun ghost story.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that one? That one's pretty tame.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's compelling. I mean, it's a secondhand story. I don't know these people, so I can see how there's a lot of skepticism in it. But I mean, I think it comes down to, what do you think about what happens to the soul after the body is done?
Yeah.
What constitutes consciousness, and um, where does that reside? Is it, if does it go away when the body goes away? I mean, we all have this feeling that there's something that survives, right? I think that most of us have this
Yeah.
sense. unless you're just the super rationalist that wants to have proof for everything. Um, so part of me really wants to believe it, though.
This would be, yeah, it would be cool. So here's this one that I started to read by accident. 2 sisters killed in a car accident were reincarnated as twins. John and Florence Pollock were devastated when their twin daughters Joanne and Jacqueline died in a car accident on May 5th, 1957. The following year, they were thrilled to hear they were expecting, and once again, Florence was carrying twins. The twins, Jillian and Jennifer, were born identical, except for Jennifer's birthmarks. She had a birthmark on her waist, similar to a birthmark Jacqueline had, and a birthmark on her forehead that resembled one of Jacqueline's scars. John and Florence moved away from their old home when their daughters were 3 months old. John and Florence told Jillian and Jennifer very little about their late sisters, but the girls seemed to share Joanna and Jacqueline's memories. They would request old toys that had belonged to the deceased twins, recognize landmarks when traveling to their parents' former home, and were inexplicably terrified of cars. Upon seeing oncoming traffic, they would shriek, "The car is coming to get us." Luckily, by the age of 5, these frightening memories mostly faded away. The girls went on to live relatively normal adult lives. However, their story is still frequently cited as evidence of reincarnation. It doesn't say that in this article, but not only did the girls request these old toys from the deceased sisters, when the mom brought them down, they're like, "Here you go." And they're like, "Oh, this isn't mine, this is yours." And divvied up the toys because they remembered which ones were theirs and, each one. And that was another really big sign for the parents because they're like, "Oh my God." Like, it wasn't a mix and match. It was like, "Oh, these were Jennifer, these were such and such," right? So I liked that one. And the thing about the scars is important because, or birthmarks is important because it is believed in Indian culture where reincarnation kind of originated. It's believed that if you have a birthmark somewhere prominently, that's like where you were killed in the past life. So like a little kid had like a line across his face, and apparently he was axe murdered in a past life. Yeah. Oh my, can you see my Zoom? I just did that and it put a thumbs up.
What's the deal with that? Did you touch the screen or not?
No, I realized that they have added a new feature in Zoom where if you go like this, you are about to raise your hand, because probably that's what every old person in the world is doing when they watch Zoom. There it is. Right? So I have to manually lower it. And then if I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool, that's so cool."
I was wondering, because that's happened before, like how that happened, because it didn't look like your hands were close to the screen. Now that makes
They're
sense.
not. It's an automatic setting that you have to turn off in settings, which I've found recently. So anyhow. The other thing, anyway, so this brings me to, I'm going to wiggle this in here, twins. And so I've also done a lot of studying on twins over the years because twins are such an important part of our science, to map the brain, like so many things, like social sciences, technology. Like they've studied twins. It's usually identical twins. I don't want to snub the fraternal twins, because the fraternal twins are the base element to any experiment. So identical twins being very alike, this all ties in. The interesting thing about twins, and especially identical twins, is their mind and their souls are almost one. And not all of them, but there are many cases, because that's where the embryo splits right from each other. They're made from each other,
Okay.
Identical twins
Right,
are
right.
made from one cell that
Right,
splits.
right.
And then fraternal both just happen to grow together.
Right.
So we actually have quite a few sets of twins in our family. My aunt and uncle are fraternal twins. And we have twins on my sister-in-law's side. So we're actually hoping that when Max and her get pregnant next time, that it's probably going to be, or not probably, but we're going to hope that it's twins, because she wants 3 babies and he wants 2. And so that's her like way to like sneak it in. But my grandmother, so my mom is the oldest,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandmother had a miscarriage after having my mom. Then she had the twins. Now, this plays into the reincarnation thing, because this is, you would say, like if you got pregnant after a miscarriage, they call it a rainbow baby, right? She had my mom, had a miscarriage, and then had twins. And it's a boy girl set, it's fraternal twins. So it wasn't made from the same egg. So somebody could argue, okay, well, one of those babies is the one that passed away now coming back. And that's something my grandmother talked about and something she believed. She said, she goes, I lost the baby, but I believe God gave my baby back to me.
So then you think that the soul splits?
No, I think one of those babies was planned, and one of those babies was the one that didn't make it. So let's say her miscarried baby was the boy, right? She gets pregnant again. The girl is already being formed, and the boy joins a new egg. That's why they're fraternal, because the first time around didn't make fraternal. It. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But in the case of identical twins, do you think their soul is split?
In some cases, yes.
Really?
In some cases, yeah.
Huh.
There was a documentary that I've watched a couple times. It's actually, you can watch it on YouTube. I think it's called Twin Studies or Twin Science, and it covers every type of twin and their connection, the science, how their minds work and stuff like that. And there was one set where these girls, the parents like dressed them separately, like, and until they were old enough to choose their own clothes, they were treated as separate individuals. Even the parents put them in separate classrooms so that they would have a sense of identity. As soon as these girls were able to dress themselves, they dressed alike. They did not flourish if they were not with each other. Even in the interview, their shoulder to shoulder touching, and they explained it like, we feel like we can't be apart from each other. We're not. They actually wished they were conjoined twins because they felt like they were one person.
Yeah. You know what I a lot of the mystics will say that this idea we have of being separate is actually an illusion. Um, and a lot of mystical experiences are one of a unitive consciousness, one that's like sees that we're all one or that we're all connected. So I don't know what that has to do specifically, if that has anything to do with the idea of that those twins to really feel that sense of connectedness and why that might be. But
it could be both. It could be both. It could be that because their minds are so similar that they just have a bigger sense of the universe than we do. Or it could be that, or it could be that they were split in two. And then that begs the question, well, would that have been an accident? Because does God make mistakes? So if not, if our version of God doesn't make mistakes, is that how they were supposed to live for a certain reason? Why was the soul split into two? There's 1,000 questions to that.
Well, yeah, the first one is who is God? What is the nature of God that we can know whether
Right.
God is able to make mistakes or not? What's the nature of reality? Are there mistakes? I don't know. I mean, yeah,
What's
there's a
the
lot
meaning
of
of life?
what's the meaning of life? What
Yeah.
does this all mean?
But
Where are we
that's
going?
stay with me, Faith. Oh no. I'm giving you extra existential crisis on a
Yeah.
Wednesday.
What's the meaning of it
This is,
all?
I mean, well, okay, wait. So first, I want to say, fuck, I lost it. What is the meaning of life? Oh, give me a second. Give me a second. I'll get back to you on the meaning of life. God. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Yeah, I guess does God make mistakes?
So there's two line of thoughts, right?
Okay.
Trains of thought. So one, if God makes mistakes, is it God that did it, or did our souls of it their own free will rush into other? Okay, it's such a big question that it's such a big thought process that it's hard to condense into words sometimes. Oh, okay. So a lot of religions believe that reincarnation, especially Christianity, that reincarnation is not a thing. It's not real. It's like
Right.
evil, whatever. But I love hearing the accounts from children, because children are so honest, right? And it's, I've seen patterns over the years of reading these stories and internalizing these stories. And a lot of times the kids, and I even said it today, the kids will say, well, God, I went home to God. I went to heaven. So they believe in heaven. I met God. So God was there. And then God sent me back. It, so, but then on the ground, Christians are like, that's not a real thing. And this kid's like, well, I just met God, and that is a thing, and that's what happened. So, so it's interesting. And the same thing with some mediums. Like I used to watch the Long Island Medium, and she's a devout Catholic. And she was taught that her gift was like a sin early on. And then she had to just find a way to like make do with it, because she's like, my gift has to come from God. This has to come from God. It's just interesting to see what Christians reject, when I wonder if it's God really trying to be like, no, this is the thing that happens. Stop. Like, this is what happens. And he puts it in the mouth of babes, because they're not in anyone's pocket, and it even happens with families that are not religious at all, where the kid's like, I met God. And the parents are like, we don't even believe in God. And they're like, yeah, I met God, and God sent me here, and God sent me back to your belly. Sorry, I don't have another thought to that. Go ahead.
All right, I have a thought. So, what if
Do it.
I'm totally just making this up. I don't really believe one or the other, okay? But what if
Okay.
there is this field of knowledge and experience that kind of transcends over different groups of species, like oh my gosh, this is going to sound weird.
Nope.
Like as we evolve, somehow the next generation of whatever species it is kind of retains some of the knowledge about like some of the plants they can eat, whether that survives in the DNA or whether that survives in some
Bees.
other yeah, like
Bees.
how do they know where to migrate to, or how do they know all of these
Genetic memory. That's a real thing. Genetic
genetic
memory.
memory, or yeah, whatever. So that sort of thing. What if there's the ideas can also be transmitted? So
Oh.
what if you have this idea that over centuries of who God is, like that there is this God, that there is this existence of heaven that gets transferred from generation to generation, and that's there in your subconscious and your DNA somehow. I mean, that's why the images like the archetypes really resonate, I think, so strongly with people, because they're these images of like say that like the idea of the hero's journey, the idea of trying to think of some other types of the archetypal figures, like for the like the tarot cards, right? So you have in the tarot cards, you have different archetypal figures like the magician or the high priestess or the I don't know, I can't think of all of them now. Those types of things, maybe they resonate with people because they're just ingrained within us somehow. So maybe that's what's happening, is that these kids are like, I had this experience. This is what my brain can put it to. I don't know. Just put that out there for thought.
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
That's a good thought in this melting pot of thoughts, because it's just like goulash, this whole thing. But yeah, that's totally valid, because it already exists in our world. Genetic memory, what if it's not past lives? What if it is just old memories passed down?
I don't know that there's any scientific way to validate whether those types of ideas get transmitted over centuries, like different, not centuries, but through different generations of people. I'd be curious to hear about if there was, but it seems like logically that happens because we seem to be building upon our human experiences generation after generation. Don't you think? Don't you feel it? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Because think about this. Let's say a meteor hits the earth, right? Let's say Walking Dead really happens. Let's say there's a zombie apocalypse, and most, but not all of the population is wiped out. I always wonder to myself, oh God, what would we do without scientists and mathematicians and like, how would, all these people that took these generations and generations to create medicine and operations and all that. And now you're left with like me, I survived. I can't do shit, like if I'm, when it comes to restarting humanity,
each one of us can only do so much, right? Yeah, we have a limited
skill
set.
I watch shows like that too, and it begs the question, like, how fast would humans relearn? How fast would they recover? Like, it took us X amount of years to find the first, I don't know, to build the first engine. How long would it take us if none of us knew how to build an engine of a car? How long would it take us to like figure that out and then have a working society again? Would it be in there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just all there's a guy named Rupert Sheldrake who isn't quite accepted in the scientific community because he's got this theory of this thing called morphogenic fields, where he postulates that there are these fields over groups of species, over groups of even people, that once a behavior is learned, it's in that field, and the other individuals within that species or group of people, whatever, it gets learned quicker the second time. And he says that this can be proven and shown, and it's really fascinating. But he does get a lot of crap from the scientific community, and I would suspect that any legitimate scientist would be like, yeah, I don't know about that. But it's a fascinating theory, and he has done a lot of his own experiments. But yeah.
How often is the case that the crazy scientist ends up being right?
And it's all, I mean, these are, you have to think outside of the box in order to get anywhere new, right? You have to bring in that creative element. And how do you do that besides thinking of something a little crazy and outside of the box? So, hey, I love exploring these ideas, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you about this stuff.
I know. It just keeps me up at night. I know. I'm just thinking about all those scientists who, it's so sad when they get rejected by a community who your job is literally to hypothesize. Like, that's literally your job. And they're like, we don't like what you were guessing about or studying. So come on.
Right.
So I sent you my most shocking of videos. And it was about the woman who overheard her kids talking about their own death, right? So her little girl is in the living room and she's like, goes up to her brother and it's like, remember when you ate me? And he's like, yeah. Kind of laughs about it. And then the mom was like, what the hell? I'm going to play it. Sure. And I'm going to put it up to the microphone because I can't deliver it the same way. And it's so loaded. There's so much in it. And this is what we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, because it's just
ridiculous. You screen share it?
Ooh. Can you screen share it if I send it to you?
Yeah, I already have it. So give me a second and I'll screen share it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know how to get this in a completely new window without showing my texts, but well, hold on a second here.
Oh.
If anything weird shows, we won't do this part. But anyway.
You mean the part where I'm like, I'm stoned? You want to add that out?
All right. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. I'm stoned, but here's the vids.
All right, here we go.
Parents of TikTok, twin. What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
One day when my youngest was about 3 or 4, in the middle of doing something in the living room, whatever, it was family time, homework, something, but it doesn't really matter. She all of a sudden, out of the blue, told her brother, do you remember when you ate me? And she was dead damn serious, just dead serious. Here's the funny thing, though. He chuckled, right? Which, it's funny. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, no, hold up, time out. When the fuck did this happen? And she's like, yeah, Mom, he ate me. We were really, really hungry. And I thought that we were going to die or something. And he was bigger than me, so he just ate me. But here's the funny part. She was like, but she did the whole little hand thing, too. I didn't want to be born a boy, so it's fine. I got what I wanted. And I'm like, what? Mind you, when I was pregnant with my son, I was actually pregnant with identical twins. Twins run in my family. Multiples run in my family, naturally. Okay. So I was excited, but I couldn't hold food down or what have you, to the point that I had to be monitored and I had to be put on IV and things of that nature multiple times a week, just to make sure I got the nutrients and stayed hydrated. And I was doing better. They want to do another ultrasound to make sure that the babies were okay. But when they did it, they only saw one baby and 2 umbilical cords. Like the other umbilical cord was just hanging there with nothing else. So, being a young new mom, I've watched stuff, right? I've watched TLC, Discovery Channel. I was like, oh, did they merge? Like, how is that going to work? And the doctor's like, no, actually, that happens way earlier. They did not merge. He's like, this happens rarely, but it does happen. And I'm like, what? He tells me, he's like, well, remember, you had to be monitored and put on IV and all that because you weren't getting as much nutrients that you should for you and the baby. It's like, yeah. He's like, well, it seems like the surviving child ate the other child. And I was like a damn shark? He was like, yeah, like a shark. Yeah, that sums it up. I was like, so what the hell? Like, do we need to do blood tests? He's like, no, it's fine. I mean, this baby is nice and healthy and big. I was like, oh, okay. But I never told my children that. I never told any of my children until that day. That's when I told them that story. Like, never told them any of that. I was like, yeah, so sit down. We need to have a conversation. And my youngest, she knew exactly. She's like, yeah, I know. My son, he's a boy. He doesn't talk a lot about that stuff, but he knew. But that's the funny part. She knew everything, and she was happy to come back as a girl. So there you go. I'll say.
What was your first thought when I sent you that?
I didn't know where you were going with it. That's what I was wondering.
You were like, what rabbit hole is she down tonight?
What I don't understand is, how can a baby eat another baby? They don't have
that.
teeth.
That's exactly what my mom said.
Swallow it? I don't know. It's weird.
I'm telling my mom this story last night. I'm like, Mom, can you believe this? And I'm playing it for her. And she goes, how does a baby eat another baby? And I was like, She goes, they don't have teeth. And I'm like, oh my God. So of course I look it up.
Yeah.
Can a twin eat the other twin? And there's something called vanishing twin syndrome, where, you know, at some point, if one of the twins is malnourished or doesn't have enough nourishment, it will pass away and then just be reabsorbed into the body. But the umbilical cord will remain. So it'll just be like she said, they're not 100% sure if that's the real answer to that, or if, you know, it kind of counts as a miscarriage and you pass it and you don't even realize it really. But there is such thing called vanishing twin syndrome. And essentially, like, he wasn't like chomping away at her, but if she was reabsorbed into the womb, then whatever nutrients she had in her body would then go to his body, because you get your nutrients, you know, that way, whatever. So while I was listening to this, though, so my mom had the same reaction you did. How'd that happen? But when I first watched it, I was like, when the girl said, well, that's okay, because I wanted to be a girl, I was like, wait a minute. I like sat up in bed. I'm like, what if that is how transgender people have come about? Like, what if, two scenarios. What if, one, you're the rainbow baby and you're sliding in over the rainbow into the new egg to come back, but you didn't, you know, maybe the soul was like rushing and it didn't check, and boom, you picked a girl egg, but really you wanted to be a boy egg. But see, that girl, she even said, I got my way, I wanted to be a girl anyway. So do they not have a choice? And then when they end up in their body, they just never let go of like, no, I used to be a girl, I want to be a girl in this life. And they change their body to match that feeling. I wonder if, like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, there's so much attached to the idea of gender too. Like, is it?
I know.
Is it social? Is it just physical? Is it, what is it that soul is expecting to, I don't know. I mean, we need to have a transgender person come on and talk about this.
Yes.
I don't know.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
No, but the other thing is, like, because the idea of more than one gender apparently has been around forever. So Native Americans and I think in Asian cultures also, like androgynous people or hermaphrodites who have both. I don't know if that's still the acceptable phrase. I'm sorry if it's not, but those cultures embrace it. They're like, yeah, there's a third gender. I just found this out today because I was in one of my dating apps. And somebody listed themselves as two-spirit.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I thought, well, does that mean you're bisexual? Does that mean, like, what does that mean? So I looked it up, and it is a term, a Native American term to explain to Westerners that they're neither male or female. They feel that they're, I guess, gender fluid, but they had their own word for it millions, thousands of years ago. They had their own word for it, and so they accepted that in that culture it was accepted that it really wasn't like just man and woman. So this concept of man and woman is newer as well, also carried with religion. It's exhausting. Religion kind of threw a huge monkey wrench into society all over the place.
Okay, like how? Why? What makes you say that? Like, what do you think religion did to society to change it so much that you're referring to?
Like, so in Greece, Also, it was widely accepted for many, many years to be to live a gay lifestyle. And it was very common, like Socrates, all those guys, whatever. And then when religion came in, they kind of bastardized it. And when I say religion, I mean Christianity. They kind of bastardized that. And it became unacceptable. You know, you read the book and you hear the Clobber passages like, marriage is between a man and a woman. God made, we're made in God's image, and that's man or a woman, and Sodom and Gomorrah and Leviticus and blah, blah, blah. Yep. Where they're all those goodies. Yep. And when I say Clobber passages, to anyone that doesn't know, there's 7 or 8 passages in the Bible that most Baptists will, or people that believe this, will revert to when talking about how being gay is wrong. However, those same passages have also been interpreted in different ways.
I've never heard that term before, though. Clobber passages. Is that like a real, that's what people refer to them as? Oh, man. Yeah.
Especially in open and affirming churches, if you use that term, they'll recognize it.
But it's really important, I feel like, for evangelicals to get an experience and know what it is that other people are saying about what they're doing to them. So I would really love because I would have loved for myself to have heard that as an evangelical. Look, these people, there's this group of people who say that you're using Clobber passages to clobber them with your ideas and your expectations of them. And that's how they feel when you present that to them. Instead of just gently giving them the truth like you think you're doing, you're clobbering them. And that's horrible.
Sorry, the mailman's outside. And my dog she wants to scream. I have a really good story for that, actually. I can give you a partial answer to that.
Okay.
Because in 2019, when I was at the Baptist Evangelical Church, I had a friend who I knew since, actually, she was my ex-girlfriend, but she's now married to a woman and they have 2 little kiddos. And she was watching all the posts about my church. And she's like, well, I'd love to come to your church. But her wife wouldn't let her. She was like, no, like I looked up their doctrine, like it's not cool. She can't go there with you. And I thought, well, I don't want her to lose out on Jesus because Jesus has changed my life. And regardless if she goes to my church or another church, I just want to make sure she had the opportunity to meet Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. That was my mindset. So the only place I knew was a church the church that I go to now, because it had a rainbow flag outside. And I thought, well, obviously that's going to be okay. So I brought her with me.
So just real quick, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, so keep going, but seeing the rainbow flag for people who are homosexual or bisexual, they see that as a place of being, they know that they're safe there, correct?
It's a beacon of safety.
Uh-huh.
Because
go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I'd like to hear you.
If that doesn't show up, like if you don't see a rainbow flag, what is your first initial thought when you see a church and you're part of that community? Do you initially go, I'm not going to be accepted there?
I personally expect to be met with resistance. However, and this is just me personally, I always hold the hope that maybe they'll be accepting, which is what happened at the last place, because they acted like they would be accepting, but they really weren't. It was cloaked in something more like were trying to change me. But for me, it's not, okay, it's this one way, it's proceed with caution.
Okay.
And it's something that I say to the group I'm in now. I tell them, like, I didn't know there were churches that were okay with gay people. I didn't think any church was ever okay with gay people. So when I decided to go church hopping 4 years ago and look for a new faith, I really did expect to be driven out eventually, but I wanted that same feeling of God. I felt a connection to God. I told you my mom is agnostic. She does not believe in God. I didn't really have, other than my aunt, I always had this connection. So I know that that's real, and I know that the spirit is real. And I wanted a place to learn about it, but I had to like mentally prepare myself that if I go into a place like that, I need to also know that if I tell them who I am, I run the risk of being kicked out or even being hated on. And ultimately that is what happened. But even though I knew about this church with the flag, I didn't know anybody there, but because I was now ingrained in my Baptist church, I felt like the need to bring my friend to Jesus was more important than my fear of going to a place that I didn't know. So we went together. We sat in the very back row with her little baby. And I had my friend Shannon with me, and Shannon was the one that came with me to the Baptist place first, because I wasn't going to walk into a place I didn't really know. We knew one person there, but she couldn't get out fast enough because their model was very old-fashioned, singing in a hymnal, in hardwood pews, huge organ. It was beautiful. But we were used to the rock and roll. We were used to like crying and hands, and we were used to a whole different culture. So we're like, this is cute, but like we missed the party, But so she booked. She's like, this feels too Catholic. I gotta go. And she's not even gay. So that's on her religious trauma, just from whatever she went through. And for straight people, a lot of their religious trauma is having a child out of wedlock. So
sure. Yeah.
When we went, I grabbed the pastor after the sermon. I said, hey, I'm not looking to leave my church, but I would really love to know how you guys became accepting of give me even back then I was like, I need a resource to bring back to my church to show them like, hey, here's some religious people that said this is okay.
Yeah.
And she was like, hang on, I have a book in my office. So she went in her office and she came back with a book called The 8 Clobber Passages. And it was like, it was thin. It was like this thin.
Yeah.
And it breaks down every passage, where it is in the Bible, the context, the interpretation, the culture of the time, and what those things meant, right? Which was super, super enlightening. And as I read them, I said, well, thank you so much. Would you like me to bring the book back? She's like, no, you can keep it. And she's like, you can always come here. And I was like, well, no offense, this is not my gig. Now I'm there. But I was like, no, I would really love to help another church get to this place. That was back when I had hope for them, before I knew. That's when I was innocent and naive and I didn't know any better. 2019 was the best year of my life, right? I was living on cloud nine. I had this awesome church family, this church life. So I held on to that book for years. And last year, right before I left, I had reread it, and I just thought, well, what if they saw? What if they knew? And I couldn't think of many people that I would share that book with. In fact, I was afraid to share that book with people because I thought they would think that I was trying to divide the body. I had this one friend, the deacon, I always call her the deacon, who knew me before church, and was hand in hand with me through my whole journey, knew everything. I said, I have this book and I would really like you to read it, but I don't want you to tell anybody that you have it. And she goes, well, I have to tell my husband. And he's like, the thing is, I felt like she was I feel like I had a chance to reach her, Nobody else. I felt like I could reach her because she had that respectful disagreement. Like we had respectful disagreements and respectful whatever.
Yeah.
So she goes, are we going to have a discussion after? I said, no, I don't want to discuss it after. She goes, okay, so I don't have to make notes. She was prepared to read and contradict each passage. So I brought it to her. I even remember when you're a kid and you had book covers, you like use the newspaper and made a book cover. I folded up a piece of newspaper and made a book cover to bring it to church like it was cocaine or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I had gone back and forth, and this is around the time I asked the pastor, like, hey, if I got a girlfriend, would you ask me to leave? And he was like, yeah. But I was like, I just want you to see. And she was, I'm sure I've heard it all before I even read the book. That's what and I was like, she goes, but I'll read it for you because I love you. I said, I hope this helps you understand who I am.
Yeah.
And so this, like I said, this was right near the end. I'll tell you what, she never gave me that book back.
Oh, really?
No. And I think she did that on purpose. Like I visited a couple times before we broke off, and I was just like, oh, hey, do you have that book? She's like, oh yeah, it's somewhere. I didn't think she wanted me to have it back because knowledge is power, right? So I remember asking her, I'm like, did you read that book? And she goes, yeah, I read it. She goes, but you don't want to discuss it, so I can't really tell you why. I can't really tell you why the book is wrong. I can't tell you why the book is wrong. She didn't look at that and go, wow, this is what. No, they had an actual rehabilitated lesbian pastor who was now straight come and talk to the congregation, and this woman spat out like stat after stat, heartbreaking. And I thought, if these people can't, I mean, that woman was like, to prove how sad it is to be a gay person and how they just want to kill themselves all the time. And my point was like, bitch, we want to kill ourselves because we're being rejected by our support system. Right? So I gave her those Clobber passages. I can't imagine what her notes would have been. But the short answer was, there could be scientific proof. Jesus could calm down off a cloud today and say, hey, girl, this is what I actually meant, and it's okay. And she'd be like, you're fake, and they'd probably crucify him again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's the definition of approaching a belief dogmatically, right? There's some sort of a Buddhist parable about, and I'm gonna probably butcher this, but there was a man whose family died in a fire, and he found the remains of a small child and thought, this is my son has died. And he mourned his loss and was very sad. But in actuality, what had happened was his son did survive and was taken care of in another city for years until he grew up. And the son finally made his way back to his father's house and knocked on the door and said, Father, please let me in. It's been a long time, and I want to see you. And the man inside said, go away. This is a cruel joke, leave me alone. My son is dead. And this young man kept knocking on the door. No, it's really me. I'm alive, and I want to see you. And the father is like, no, my son is dead. I saw it. My son is dead. And finally, he refused to let him in, and the young man left and went away, and they were never able to be reunited. And it's kind of a parable of the way that we can get so fixed on what we think we know to be true that even when the truth comes and knocks at the door telling us what's there, and in announcing itself, we're unable to accept it or acknowledge it.
And that's just full circle seminar that we this week. People can hide those memories. People make a non-belief a non because they decided. So
right,
it's our brains are complex, and we use a quarter of our brains. Like, there's so much that you wonder, like, yes, our brain can be very deceitful, but I can kind of also tap in to some really amazing truths too. So is it true or is it false? Is it false? Is it true? Is there God, or is it just our brain? Is it? What's the meaning of life?
Oh no, we're back to this again.
Yeah, that's our whole gig is this.
Right. I know. The things that keep us up at night. Why are we doing the things that we're doing?
I know.
Why are we here?
Why was I telling you about the Clobber passages?
Because you were telling me about sending your friend to the church with the rainbow flags.
Oh yeah, because you were asking me how to decide what churches to go to and what the flags mean. Yeah. And right now there's a great debate within the church that I'm at about the banners. Now the flag is gone. There's some metal bolted banners.
Yeah.
Just big ones all to the side of the church.
2 of them.
And yes, boom, boom. Like, hey, we're here, we're queer cat, yes, so So I think what people on the outside think is that it's just like a church full of gay people. It's known as the gay church.
Yeah, I've heard people refer to it like that before.
I've referred to it like that. My doctor even. I was like, yeah, I go to this place. And they're like, oh, the gay church. And I'm like, yep, that's me. Well, when I walked in there, I was like, oh, this place is going to be crawling with lesbians and flamboyant men. And that is not the truth. I have just as many options to find my soulmate in this church as I did at the last one. It's like, really? There's like 2 gay people there, right?
That's so interesting. So they go through this process called, I've learned a little bit about it, and I'll probably stumble over things, but there's a process called the open and affirming process, I guess, within that church they had to go through in order to.
Yes.
I don't really know if it's like a full blown process, and then they can put a statement on their website. I don't understand it, so maybe you can explain it more.
As soon as I figured out this is where I wanted to, that's what we were talking about, why I had to leave my last church. I just being a gay person trying to learn about Jesus. So when I decided to go to this new place, even though they had the rainbows out front, I was like, I still don't know. You have that leftover, like, what if they don't want me either feeling, And so I did research on the church. So apparently in 1996, 2 of the Methodists, who I now know, both of them, I got it straight from their mouth, went to a retreat or something, or a conference about welcoming and what it means to welcome people into the house of God. And on their drive back, they were like, you know what? We need to add more people. Like, we're missing out on people. So they came back to the church, and in our church specifically, it is a democracy. They have a voting system. They have a president, vice president, board of directors, whatever. So it's up to their congregation. They pitched this idea to the congregation. They're like, hey, we want to include people officially. We want to officially be able to say, if you're gay, straight, bi, blah, 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 come on in. And as you can imagine, there was some uproar because it just wasn't done. It's just synonymous. Like if you're gay, you probably are not going to want to go into a church. Like as a gay person, they just assume they're not wanted in any church. So yes, you had your people that were mortified or whatever, but apparently most of them were like, you know what, we should. Let's go through this process. It took them 20 years.
Oh, wow.
No, it didn't. I'm lying. 1996, they became officially open and affirming in 2002.
Oh, okay.
Which is not 20 years.
Yeah, no.
I don't know why I said that. Oh, it took, I know why I said that. So 1996 was the very first conversation to 2002 when they officially came out as open and affirming. Mm-hmm. They didn't put anything rainbow outside. They just had it in their mission statement, which is something that I love about them too, because what we're working on our mission statement right now is land acknowledgement, how we've taken land from our indigenous tribes, mm-hmm. just to have it out there for record. So it took them until it took about 20 years to get them to have it. Started with a tiny little sticker underneath the name of their, just like a thin strip, this long, mm-hmm. probably a foot, to let people know that you could, like, hey, in case you didn't read our documents, we'll let you in. Mm-hmm. And then it graduated to the flag, which when they started, I know they lost people when they first became open and affirming because they were like, this isn't our church, blah, 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 blah. Then they had some people that were on the fence. And then when the flag went up, they lost some people because now everyone can see, oh, if I'm going into that church and it has a gay flag, people are going to think I'm this or that or whatever. So they lost some people there. When the banners were bolted to the side of the building, they were pissed. There's a small group of them that are still pissed. There's a group of them that have left, and those banners have been up now for 2 years. They're still fighting about it. But the majority of those people there are happy that they're there, that they are fighting for a place where everyone can come and learn about God. People that were in my situation, my literal situation, which I plan to talk about during Pride Week, because I'm going to be allowed to talk about being gay in a church.
That's great.
To a congregation. Yeah, mm-hmm. That is great. It's a beautiful thing because, you shouldn't have to decide.
How does that make you feel to finally, like, that difference in feeling between hiding who you are at the other church and then being able to speak about your experiences in this other church? What's the difference in feelings for you?
Oh my God. Huge. I never was quiet about it in the last place, but I was never, like, the leaders knew and my friends knew, but I wasn't, like, I didn't talk about it a lot because they could have taken me out of ministry because if someone complained. But here, it's bittersweet because so much damage was done, that to be authentic in this place is refreshing and nice and scary. And because of what happened, you still have that fear that it could happen again for some other reason, even though it's not logical, mm-hmm. even though your thoughts are not logical. It's just that having to protect your identity and protect your morality, because they always, it always comes down to if you're a moral person, and moral people don't love people of the same sex or whatever, to not have to argue that. I'm still getting used to that. Even when I'm writing emails or having conversations, I preface and I give a disclaimer and I'm like, well, just so you know. And I don't really have to do that, but it's just,
You mean you
It's
have
just
to feel
left
like you
over.
have to let people know that you're bisexual?
Um,
Or you have to, what do you have to let people know?
yeah, that I'm part of the community. I I want them to know here. I do. I want them to know. I wrote a message to the board introducing myself. And that's what I started out with. I'm like, hi, I'm new. I'm a bisexual female, and I am in this congregation because I want to keep learning about God and learning about Jesus. And I want to thank you for allowing me to do that.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to let those people know, especially the ones that like me, just so you know, I'm a product of what you've done over the years. Me being in this church, singing with you or praying with you or just taking communion with you, me getting to be part of God's kingdom is because you allowed me to, because not everywhere will allow me to do that. And so I think it's important for them to see and hear, because of the opposition, because of the people that want to that want to take the banners down and take that stuff out. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's validation for them that they did the right thing, and that it wasn't for nothing. Right. I am here, and I'm, and some of the other people who have been there for a long time who are LGBTQ, like, they're frustrated that people are still bitching about the banners and stuff. And I understand that frustration, but at the same time, like, they're still there, and they only got bigger over the years. People got loud and bitched about it, but like, they're still there. Mm-hmm. They've been there for 2 years, and people have been complaining about it. Yeah, they're still there. Every day that I drive by that, it says, hey, you're allowed to be a child of God here as you are.
Well,
you're not broken, and it's not a mistake.
There's in some other churches that aren't quite as bold as the one that you're attending. There is often this hesitancy to, while they might be completely accepting of homosexuals or other sexual identities coming to church to worship with them, they have a problem with putting out a flag or any open signs, because they feel like that's, for all sorts of reasons. I think there's a lot of reasons there that they're not willing to confront or accept as being a real reason, but they would say that they don't want to exclude other people. They accept everybody. So why would they just put out that they accept only these people? So there's a lot of fight over that and struggle over what the purpose of putting up a flag is for. And so it's nice to hear your experience and why that is such a comforting thing for you to see and to have experienced, to know that it's safe to go to that church.
It's the same reason why when my mom says, why do people have to put Black Lives Matter sign up? I'm like, because Black people need to know that they matter.
Yeah.
And so every time somebody goes, all lives matter, but you don't treat all lives the same. Gay people in a church matter, but you're not saying that. In fact, you're saying the opposite. When you're asking someone to leave, when George Floyd dies under a man's knee, that's actions are the opposite. Right. So you can say what you want to say, but those banners are an action. Mm-hmm. And the other part of that is the same reason we don't talk about Bruno. Because back in the day, you didn't talk about your problems. You didn't talk about things that were taboo. Sure, we'll let you into our church because we want God, and like, okay, but don't talk about it, and don't be flamboyant about it. And my own mother has said that to me, and she's like, well, I don't like the women that are really butch. And I was like, well, and what happens if I come in here and I have like a nice manly woman? She goes, that's going to be gross. And I'm like, she goes, why do you have to flaunt it? I'm like, it's not about flaunting it. It's just about
being who you are. right?
That person wants short hair. That person wants to wear men's jeans. You're wearing men's jeans right now because you don't have any hips. She's like, well, that's different. It's not different. Yeah. So, the people that are like, oh yeah, you can come in here, but don't talk about it, is the same feeling of it might as well be a Baptist church because you're not accepting me. If you're letting me into your church, but you don't want people to know that you let gay people into your church, then it might as well be the same thing. It feels the same. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those people that are saying that, keep it a secret, they're not ready to.
There needs to be more bold acknowledgement of the differences between the more progressive churches and the evangelical churches, because the evangelical churches, our voice is so loud in this country. It is so loud and so well organized and so well just communicated that there needs to be a loud opposing voice saying, no, there is another expression of Christianity that does accept this. And here's why. And it has to be loud and it has to be bold. Otherwise, it's going to be lost. And sadly, that's what's happening, is that people are getting turned off of Christianity, period, because all they hear is that one side and that one voice that's the loudest. And it's a real shame that people are missing out on the beauty and the gifts of Christianity because of that.
Well, then that goes back to what we were talking about last week when I said to you, I had that feeling, excuse me, I had that feeling coming into this place like gung-ho, like I want to be that big loud voice. I want to be that person that like pushes these guys with their idea forward. I want people to know about them. But then, am I fighting fire with fire? Because now that's that line, back to the line, where am I acting like them to beat them? Not beat them, but in a way we do need to beat them because they are loud. So if I go out and do the things that they do and I conduct myself the way they do, and is it fake or is it like, is it authentic? Because I really do want to get my congregation together and do more things with the kids. And I really loved the things that we did as a church with the Baptists. It was fun. It gave us an opportunity to be together and get to know each other, be part of each other's lives, and learn about God. But then, on the other hand, sometimes we feel like, well, is that fake? Is it all show? Is it theater? Is it, and maybe some of it is, but at the same time, like, it was a fun show. It just had a shitty plot,
Well, I think when it comes to trying to define that, where that line is between standing up for and being loud and not, if you want to say fighting, I don't know, or showing up as the opposition or a different voice to another side. Because I know you, I think that where the fine line is, and it can be well stated, and something that Bishop Michael Curry from the Episcopal Church, something I read in a book of his, where he described his own fight for, he's a Black man trying to stand up for Black people and their right to exist and thrive within different communities and their issues. It was him describing it as standing while kneeling. So you have this opposition where you are taking a stand, but in this position of humbleness, of not in a way that's you're going to confront them and you're going to win. It's kind of like your intentions behind it. It's to stand for something that is truly you feel is right, but standing, it's the way you're standing, not in this like punch them down kind of way, but in a, this is me and I belong here and it's good. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But then does it mean that we're bringing a sword to a gunfight? Like in the end, it kind of is. To unchurched people, it is a fight. We have to prove that we're here. We can't, it's hard to be, It's like when the Indians were trying to defend their honor and their land against the colonists. Like, they were humble and they had primitive tools and they didn't want to fight.
Yeah.
But if they didn't fight, because they were not as aggressive, they were wiped out.
Right. That's a really good point. And sadly, it is something that happens over and over again, right?
So part of me wants to be aggressive because I don't want these guys to be wiped out. And their numbers are, and not just them, but like you told me last week, that the progressive churches, their numbers are dropping because the people that are progressive are nice. They won't cheat and lie and steal and cut things in half to get their end result. They're the nice guys. And the nice guys, they finish last because they don't fight dirty. So I'm not saying I want to come in there and start like throwing sucker punches, but I want to come in and be like, show them how to be loud, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that, but also be loud and righteous at the same time.
I know, Carolyn, if you figure that out, let me know, because I feel like that's my thing. I feel like all I've done my entire life is sit and be quiet. When I disagree, I shut up and I'm quiet. And but then I feel, I don't know where that line is between standing up and being like, hey, this is not okay with me, and not getting so in this tizzy and like angry and upset, like this, getting into that state. How do I keep my peace while still standing? You know, how do I not let myself get all worked up and angry? I want to be calm. I want to be at peace while still standing my ground firmly and confidently and loudly. And I don't know how to do that. So if you can teach me, man, teach me, because I don't know.
Well, being angry and wanting peace and calmness, I totally understand that. So, and I think you see it when I start to spiral, when I'm having bad days or a bad week or something, is like, I'm peaceful and calm and good and happy most days, but on the days that I'm not, I feel like such a failure. Like I couldn't hold it together. I got mad at this. I had my road rage, or I yelled at this person. But anger is part of our emotions too. And it's okay to be angry in relation to things that are happening that are not right. It's okay to be angry about the Ukraine. It's okay to be angry about people discriminating. It's okay. What's not okay? The line is integrity. Don't alter your integrity in your anger. Don't stoop to someone's level. You can be mad and say what you're doing is wrong, and you can feel that anger inside of you, but don't sit there and be like, hey, bitch, fuck you, you're wrong, I hate you, your face is ugly. Well, that's, now you've crossed the line. Like, you're attacking for the wrong reasons and you're attacking the wrong way.
Yeah.
So you can be loud and aggressive, but also as long as you keep it clean in your mind, your opinion is not an insult. An insult is an insult, right?
Yeah, thank you. That's really good. You need to say that again. Your opinion is not an insult. That's really good.
Look at me. It's right.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Your opinion.
Right.
It might be insulting to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like if I say, wow, I think all such and such act this way. I mean, it's insulting, but it's just my opinion. That doesn't mean it's right. You know? So even if you're 100% wrong, I mean, that's just your opinion. So, you know, don't attack somebody based on cheap shots. Attack them with facts, attack them with, you know, knowledge and understanding. And eventually you'll be able to argue that and not let it get you that angry. Yeah. Over the years, I've gotten in a million fights, and it's taken me years and years and years to regulate how I fight now. The number one rule, and I've told every person I've ever been with, when we get in a fight, you may never call me a name, and you may not swear at any point. Swearing's for fun. So if I call you a little bitch, it means we're joking.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at me and you're angry and you call me a bitch, we have a huge problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's your intent. And it's if it's something that you truly believe in, and it's something,
Where'd you go?
I got a phone call and it's connected to my iPad.
Oh.
So if you I lost my train of thought.
About not calling somebody a bad name when you're fighting.
Yeah, if you make it about, if you're just defending yourself and your point, it should just look like a debate, a heated debate even.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
All right.
You can check that off the list.
All right.
You're allowed to be angry.
I gotta practice it now. I'm allowed to be angry.
You're allowed,
That's good. That's good permission.
You're allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be mean.
There you go. Yeah. I think
you can be angry.
I don't know that I could be mean. I think maybe I need to practice being mean sometimes.
You can be mean to me. I can take it. I can take it because I know you don't mean it.
Oh, anyways, Mom. I've got to
get that's today.
Yeah.
That you got to get what?
I got to pick up my kids in 7 minutes. So you know.
How far away are they? 7 minutes away?
Right down the road. I have to leave in 7 minutes just to go get them. So
okay.
We're good.
Well, that's fine. I think that's everything for today. I think it was a good talk. I mean, I love stories of reincarnation. I would totally suggest that you look up the boy who was reincarnated from Titanic. That's a really good one.
Okay.
And then there's another little boy who used to be a fighter pilot in the war and was killed in the war, and he can tell you, it would look like your son's room, like planes, and he could tell you what every part of the plane was, though. Never had learning about it. The kid that came back from Titanic, he believes, his family believes he's Mr. Andrews, the architect. He knew things that were not really known to the public.
I'd be curious to know, this is the kind of conversation I would love to have with a group of people, is where is the soul located?
Mm-hmm.
What is the nature of consciousness and that type of thing? I just would love to hear what people have to say and the different thoughts, because then it plays into, how we interpret this, what do they call it? Just, it's a type of data when people just talk about it. It's when it's just
unloading.
No, and
offloading.
It's just hearsay, kind of these stories floating around. It's not like data sets from a scientific study.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember the term for it now, but we have a lot of these types of stories. And what does it point to? But answering those questions kind of helps us interpret those stories. So
we could do a live where we just talk for hours. Because then
I would love to do a live session with just open it up to people and talk about certain things. That would be fun.
And just bounce off their ideas and their what ifs. Yeah, that would be cool.
I wonder if anybody would talk to us.
Yeah, we have to work on our recording schedule. That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to probably do it on a weekend. So any hopes.
All right.
So that's it for today. You need to get your children from their school life.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful day.
It is
and
beautiful.
We're alive. And we're happy and good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing up all those neat topics. It was fun to talk about.
Yeah, I hope it got your gears going for today.
Totally.
This is the kind of stuff I just lay awake at night thinking about all the time.
I love it.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, we'll see you on the next one, Faith. Have a great day.
You too. Let's see if I can get it to show. Mine doesn't work.
Put it up against the background of your cabinet over there. You see how mine's over here on my cabinet? Here you go.
I'm trying to do it, Manuel. It's not gonna do it.
Try this. Raise your hand.
It doesn't work.
Oh man. You need to update your software.
Apparently.
Okay. Anyway, all right. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Big cut.